Bryan Cranston, who, as you know, had to recreate a famous movie character for the Broadway version of Network after news anchor Howard Beale has an on-air breakdown. His bosses exploit it big time to get better TV ratings.
I want all of you to get up out of your chairs right now, go to the window, open it, stick out your heads and yell. And don't stop yelling. First, you've got to get mad. And when you're mad enough, then we'll figure out what to do.
Bryan Cranston is nominated for a Tony Award for the role. Congratulations. It's interesting that you just said to us, I've never seen that, because that's such a powerful scene on the play and a very powerful scene in the movie. And I don't know how you get up the anger and the emotion to do that night after night after night. Help us understand.
You know, it's part of the actor's toolkit to be able to go inward and to your own personal experiences and pull out whatever you need at any given time. Rage, jealousy, love, joy.
Anger is an emotion, though, Bryan, that makes people very uncomfortable. But it's also so necessary.
Well, I think anger, especially now, is usually shunned in our society. We see someone who's angry, we don't want to be anywhere around them. But there's a lot of anxiety in our social circles now in our country, a lot of bitterness and divisiveness, and perhaps anger is a way to, you know, to drive and release some pressure.
That's one of the most famous speeches in the history of film. Peter Finch won an Academy Award for that role. So, I mean, when you're taking on something like that, how do you approach it?
Well, every time you take on a character for an actor, it's outside of you. And the more I work, the more I do research, the more I get into the head of this man, the more he's invited in. And at some point, you just trust that the character, lack of a better term, osmosis, just sinks into you. And then you own him. Then you operate from that point of view.
The original film Network, famous critique of television news in the 70s. Fast forward to today, what's the relevancy of the message now?
Well, I think
in the adaptation.
Well, when I was a kid growing up and watching Walter Cronkite, I always believed that what I was listening to was just pure news. And I believe it still was. But there were decisions being made by producers back then, as there are now. You have 25 stories, we can only get to 12. Who makes that decision of what you're not going to say?
Who decides what's news?
Who decides what's news and what's the important news? And you hope that it's altruistic in that decision making, but sometimes an ideology does say, well, I believe this is true, so this is what we're going to say.
Do you look at the news differently after doing this role?
I think you could look at it with a little bit of skepticism, and I think that's prudish, prudent actually to say that. And I think the point of Network is not to put yourself in any kind of tribalistic ideological camp. To allow yourself to open up to receive different ideas from all different sources and make up your own mind of what
Gayle mentioned this, that at one point you actually go out into the audience and actually like sit on in between seats with a couple of people.
I thought you just did that last night. I didn't know that was something that you did every night.
Every night.
Because it's got to be a different experience.
It's a different experience
people.
every night.
Last night the lady said, I've always wanted to meet you, right in the middle. It was so nice. Judy was her name. I've always wanted to meet you.
I think sometimes you've had people who've had a sandwich when you got out there, right?
Yeah, sometimes they're in the middle of, they have a takeout bag and I open it up, I'll take a bite of something. Or, I have free reign to do whatever Howard Beale wants to do at that moment. Because it's important for that moment, for the audience to see that he is promulgating the idea of letting go. He has gone over to the other side. He says, don't struggle anymore. Don't fight against the machine. Let go.
The staging, too, Bryan, is so well done.
Really creative.
Yeah, the technology that's incorporated, the way they do the control room in the newsroom.
A lot of it's actually basically televised. In the room.
Yeah, it's really appropriate to have all the multimedia that you see in the show because it is television.
Now, there was one thing we were talking about in the green room, which is what's the problem with media today? Is it television still, as Network has as its thesis, or is it now social media?
Well, I don't think that today's television media can be absolved over the responsibility of being able to put forth honest, good journalism. Everyone is under pressure of ratings.
Yeah.
Ratings and making money.
Yeah.
And sometimes you'll see programs that is all about promoting that night's shows and things. It's like, well, is this news? Or are we just a promotional vehicle for something else?
Speaking of making money, we've got to make some. Bryan Cranston, thank you very much for being with
Good
us.
luck.
Watch Network.
Good luck.
Congratulations on the Tony nomination.
Thank
Network
you.
is on Broadway right now.